my NBA players will kind of be dwindling down here towards the end of the season. Maybe focusing on just teams who are either can move up maybe in standings for playoff spots. But other than that, I'll kind of pick and choose my spots, and I will be focusing on Major League Baseball and then kind of waiting for the playoffs for NBA. I think the NBA playoffs, I don't want to say easier to bet, but if you get into a situation where maybe the team loses the first one or two games, you kind of got to think that team's going to want to bounce back in that situation. So these are just the opportunities that I look for the playoffs in the future.
Well, playoffs are series, and then it really is. A series is a totally different animal than a regular season NBA game. And if you think about it, now on the bottom of the screen, you can check out John on Instagram at GMF_sports_consultants. He's pretty easy to find. With the NBA playoffs, so you've got a situation where guys are sitting all the time in the NBA. I would imagine if you got a 3-game lead and you're locked into a spot and you can't catch the guys in front of you and the guy behind you can't catch, there's going to be an awful lot of sitting down. So you really have to look, John, at those standings before you even think of getting your money out.
Oh yeah, exactly. NBA is probably, I would say, the number one sport where you either have to literally wait until you get that exact lineup to make sure, because there's so many late scratches, the so-called rest days for these players in general. And just like you said, teams maybe jockeying for positions are going to keep their players in. Teams that are locked in, that feel comfortable, whether they're in a 2, 3, or 4 seed, they're going to rest these players. So you got to kind of really keep an eye on that and make sure you know what your lineups are before you go to that window and start putting in those bet tickets.
Really what I'm looking for in both the NBA and the NHL, I'm not touching top teams and I'm not touching bottom teams. Teams that are their position is pretty much established. I'm looking at those fringe teams, the 2 teams that are borderline in it and the 2 teams that are borderline out of it. This is a time of year where the NBA, it's hard to trust the NBA's lineups as it is unless you're really paying attention constantly throughout the day. But the NBA at this point, I don't think teams that are in the 6th seed really care about getting into that 5th seed. So, the NBA, I'm only touching the teams that are fringe teams in it or out of it. And, so I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I'm heavy into the NHL, as you know. Last year I went 9-3. I do series plays for the NHL.
Yes, we did. We talked about it on the show. I do remember that. Yep.
So we do series plays because I think though it's much easier to read. I think you're not going to have 4-game sweeps very often. You will have them, but I don't think it's a reliable strategy to bet a team to win every single game. But I'll bet the series plays with the NHL playoffs, and then game to game, it's the over under. Those are easy plays usually, and then in the NBA, I'll do series plays as well. But as far as what I'm looking at is I'm looking forward to the playoffs. The only things I'm really touching right now are fringe teams. If I touch teams, because the points, it doesn't really make a difference. If the line is juicy on the totals for teams or game total, I'm looking at those, and then really I'm in full on CFL preparation. The CFL, it sat dormant for 1 year. So some of the players that were 30, I don't know what it means for them for a quarterback to be 31, but take year 30 out of it. And, so I don't really know what that looks like. And there's been a lot of offseason moves, and the CFL, in order to follow it, it really takes a lot more effort than the NFL. So, but it is profitable. So I'm looking forward to that most of the summer. Those are kind of my plays. I'm into the horses. I'll be all over the Oak Lawn card this Saturday, and that's what I got going on outside.
Well, you mentioned CFL and a little more difficult. I got to think it's a very similar analogy to the FCS football this past spring, where it was hard to find it. It was hard to find information. It wasn't front and center. Of course, if you're in Canada, it's probably a little easier.
Access to the information about the CFL, it's out there. I mean, that's far easier than the FCS. The FCS, in some cases on your favorite app, whatever it may be, if you're looking at the score and you click on stats, certain apps don't even have the stats provided to them because with the FCS. But the CFL information is out there.